5 mythical ocean creatures. Stories about mythical creatures are never in short supply. According to common folklore, most have ridiculous traits and characteristics that make their existence impossible to believe. The fact that we often lack verifiable evidence to prove they were real doesn't make the situation any better. So sit back as we dive into the video of our channel, Ocean Uncovered, and examine the depths of the oceans. Cthulhu. The remarkably well-preserved 430-million-year-old fossil of a tentacled sea creature resembles the description of a character created by American horror and science fiction writer H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, so closely that they named the new species Selachina Cthulhu, as described in a recently published scientific paper. Lovecraft introduced Cthulhu, a grotesque tentacled monster of unknown origin resting on the ocean floor, in his 1926 short story, The Call of Cthulhu, in which he described it as a monster. It consists of a collection of tentacles, a scaly body looking like rubber, claws on the hind and forelimbs, and long, narrow wings on the back. Anatomical features reconstructed in 3D by paleontologists indicate that Selachina belongs to the Epiacotium, an extinct class of early Plesiozoic and Mesozoic echinoderms, closely related to sea cucumbers. The skin of echinoderms, including sea cucumbers, sea urchins, crinoids, brittle stars, and sea stars, is covered with tiny holes of calcium carbonate that forms a protective but flexible outer shell. Some extant species still had relatively large plates, and even the 3-centimeter long body of the extinct species was entirely covered with bony plates, giving the animal a scaly, rubbery appearance. Selachina also displays 45 tentacles, a feature of other echinoderms, branching off from a central body. The numerous tentacles remind the author of the mass of tentacles that is said to surround Cthulhu's mouth. Unlike Cthulhu, however, Selachina's tentacles were not used to devour human souls, but likely helped the animal cross across the seabed in ancient Herefordshire, which is now part of Great Britain, and is midway through the body with its mouth to feed. Kraken. The kraken is probably the most terrifying sea monster imaginable. According to ancient seafarers, it was a giant octopus-like creature that loved to sink ships and eat their crews. According to legend, octopuses used their powerful arms to attack and sink ships, and if that didn't work, it would start swimming in circles until it creates a vortex that sinks the ship. Is this type of octopus real? Yes, that's right. The so-called octopus is a giant squid, which is enormous as its name giant suggests, but much smaller and less ferocious than sailors claim. There is no record of it ever attacking or sinking a ship, or even being strong enough to sink it to begin with. The kraken went from folklore to reality when the remains of a giant squid were discovered off the coast of Denmark in 1853. The giant squid, oddly enough, is as elusive as the legends it inspires. It lives underwater at great depths, so we have a very limited amount of information about it. However, we do know that it has the largest eyes of any living thing. It grows up to 18 meters in height and is often preyed upon by sperm whales for food. The weaker giant squids usually flee when confronted by a whale. However, it sometimes fights back when cornered, and it's not uncommon to find sperm whales with scars from their fights with giant squids. The fearsome kraken was first mentioned in 1180 by King Sverre Sigurdsson of Norway. Many stories of the kraken later appear in tales of sailors and pirates across the seas, although the creature appears to be based in the seas around Norway and Iceland. It has been described as a sea monster similar to a crab with tentacles or arms reaching the masts of sailing ships, and its massive body is sometimes mistaken for an island. This mythical sea monster aggressively attacks ships and destroys them, knocks them over or drags them into the ocean depths. Sailors were taken off their ships and either eaten or left to drown while sailing. Over time, the kraken turned into a squid or an octopus-like creature. In some descriptions, this sea monster has 10 arms, in others 8. In reality, both creatures have 8 arms with shoots, and the octopus has 2 extra tentacles, which may explain the difference. It is believed that the Norwegians saw the carcass of a dead specimen of this huge sea monster washed ashore on their lands, and from there, the legend spread. They are alternatively seen as good and bad, messages from God or messages from the devil. Like a living jet engine, this true sea monster propels itself by shooting water sucked in through the rear funnel. They have 8 suction arms and 2 tentacles. These longer tentacles are used to shove food into the beak-like mouth similar to parrots. Have you realized the depths we have covered in this video? If you liked this video, do not forget to share and subscribe to the channel. Jormungandr. Jormungandr is a famous sea creature from Norse mythology, known as the Midgard serpent or world serpent. It was the child of Loki and the giant Angrboda. The snake was so big that it could wrap around the world and bite its own tail. According to legend, the apocalypse, or Ragnarok, begins when the snake lets go of its tail. Actual sea snake sightings have been recorded throughout history. Some theory suggests that this may be a plesiosaur that survived the age of the dinosaurs. A more logical explanation suggests the mistaken identities of larger marine animals, such as basking sharks or sperm whales. What inspired the ancient Norse to believe that such a creature existed is unknown. However, a while ago we saw something oddly similar to the world serpent. I'm talking, of course, about the great trenches that run through the sea floor. The fact that it spans the globe and has the body of a snake reminds historians and other Norse myth lovers of the great snake in Norse mythology. Of course, this is not why the Norse envisioned Jormungandr. Indeed, because they neither had the equipment nor the need to find anything like it. It's amazing that something like this happened because, honestly, how possible is such a coincidence? Leviathan. Leviathan is of Jewish origin. In the Old Testament, it appears as a sea serpent with many heads. It appears in the Psalm, the Book of Job, the Book of Isaiah, and the Book of Amos, also known as the cursed afterlife food. Today, the term Leviathan is generally used to describe all large sea creatures. Many stories about sea snakes and sea monsters are believed to have been caused by the giant paddlefish, or in scientific terms, Regalicus glesen. This fish can reach up to 11 meters in length, making it look like a colossal sea snake. Originally, there were two Leviathans, a female and a male. However, the Bible makes it clear that this combination made God wary. He realized that allowing such powerful beings to reproduce would be disastrous for mankind. So he killed the woman and froze her flesh for the righteous to eat in the world to come. He also made clothes for Adam and Eve, known as the clothes of light. At that time, he also neutered the male. God kept him alive, but he wanted to play it safe when it came to preventing the creation of Leviathans in the future. It is believed that the Leviathan will one day be served along with two other great beings at the feast during the end of times. The hide would be used as the tent where the feast would be held, and then the skin would remain stretched over the walls of Jerusalem as a canopy to light up the world. A Leviathan is believed to inhabit our Earth in the depths of the oceans currently. We never saw it while it lived in those depths, but people believe it was there. I will not say which opinion is correct, but I will say this. The Bible describes the Leviathan as 300 miles long. What I mean is that I'm not going to venture anywhere near a potential Leviathan hunting ground. Hydra. The Hydra is a mythical animal most often depicted as having 9 heads, each of which regenerate when decapitated. The Greek hero Heracles was ordered to kill the Hydra as his second assignment, and marble slabs in the Vatican City that depict this feat interpret the Hydra as a monstrous creature very much like an octopus. In his book, the 1604 Historia Animalium, Conrad Gessner describes the Hydra seen above with sucker-like spots on his body. Many scholars postulate that the Hydra was based on the octopus. Finally, their many tentacles can be mistaken for heads, and octopuses can regenerate their lost limbs, possibly explaining Hydra's endless supply of heads. However, many naturalists believe that the Hydra was a real creature until the 18th century. Albertus Seber, a renowned pharmacist from Amsterdam, had many curiosities filled with many specimens of extraordinary biodiversity. In the mid-17th century, Seber published his cabinet account in Locopatissimi Rerum Naturalium Thesori, Accurate Description Physical Historium. This work includes a depiction of a Hydra based on a specimen belonging to the mayor of Hamburg. Linnaeus later proved that this particular specimen was a fake, a combination of a snake skin and a weasel head. However, debunking the old notion of the octopus as a hideous and vicious monster is proving more difficult. Like the giant squid, octopuses have long had an unjust reputation as monsters. So that was all for this video. Please wait for our next one. Until then, keep diving into the oceans of knowledge. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and let us know which mythical creatures we should cover next in the comments.